Recruiting is the first thing on the docket today, but we're also going to talk about the future dockets in general.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. We'll talk about Monarch Money in just a bit. Thank you, everydayers, for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen every single day. Jimmy, we'll start out with some recruiting, but I do want to talk about the 8 versus 9 conference game debate in the second segment because Dusty and Danny in the morning talked about that again today. And it just gets my goat a little bit. I know my goat is so gotten. Anyway,
you don't want your goat got.
Anyway, we're going to talk some recruiting to begin with. First and foremost, we'll get the bad news out of the way. Mark Bowman, who we talked about the other day, a tight end from Mater Dei, will not be visiting Alabama anymore. So the odds of Alabama getting him are slim to none, and Slim just went and got my goat. So yeah, we're not going to be getting him, which is fine. I mean, look, okay, so be it. But there is another kid named Mack Sutter out of Illinois that Alabama feels pretty good about, and they like him too. So, I mean, look, there'll be a tight end or 2 or 10 in this class because this particular staff loves to recruit tight ends. Yeah,
there's 7 on the roster and a couple of, as we're going to continue to profile walk-ons, there's actually some pretty decent walk-on tight ends. That's a crowded room that Brian Ellis has. But, yeah, losing Mark Bowman's, me and you just liked him so much, compared him to Brock Bowers. That's not something I would do lightly at all. I mean, I think he's great. I think Bowman's going to end up at Texas. I mean, so many people go, oh, it's a California tight end that's compared to Brock Bowers. He'll go to Georgia, and maybe he will, but it looks like Texas, who's a recruiting behemoth in the NIL era, to be honest. But Mack Sutter would be not just a good pickup for Alabama, but pretty elite. I mean, this is a national top 10 type tight end, and one of the best Big Ten, but one of the best tight end prospects in the whole Big Ten area. Which I guess now when I say Big Ten area, I mean the Midwest, but it technically stretches from Los Angeles to New Jersey. So I guess it's, when you say he's the best in the Big Ten area, you're now talking about the contiguous U.S.
The Big Ten area now goes somewhere from, I think it's Pennsylvania to Thailand. Somewhere in there. It falls anywhere in that realm, north, south, east, and west.
Throw a dart north of the equator. But
do you remember that old, I think it was an old Regions commercial where a guy, like they were talking about, this guy planned his, finances well, blah, blah, blah. And he just threw a dart at a map and it landed on Greenland. He was like, better pack a cut jacket. And they were like, this could be you if you invest with Regions Bank.
Boy, Trump.
That's what I think about every time somebody says that.
Yeah, Trump took that ad real seriously.
Don't you go getting political, Jimmy.
I know.
Somebody's going to be PO'd that you said that, and all it was a joke. But anyway, so I do want to talk more about Jett Washington, though, because here's a guy that it looks like for all the world is coming down to Alabama and Oregon. Okay, and look, he's certainly closer to Oregon, being from Bishop Gorman in Nevada.
Yep. Right.
But, Alabama's got some sway here. And, I know Oregon and Texas are the 2 teams you probably think about the most right now when it talks about folks throwing bags. And I'm not using that in a derogatory way. But there was an article that somebody sent me on Twitter just yesterday, where it's like Texas expects to spend roughly $40 million on this year's roster.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not going to do that.
Well, that infuriates me because it's so misleading. That is like, and that headline's everywhere. And I get upset because most people don't keep up with all the rules and the rule changes that are coming. Most people don't keep up with that and they just read the headlines. That headline is so misleading. Yes, Texas is going to spend close to $40 million on their roster next year, as will virtually everyone, because that $40 million figure includes the revenue share that everyone is. Mississippi State is spending $21 million, Iowa State, NC State. So now we're all starting at a $21 million base, everyone. So From there, what are you spending? And with that figure, it's fairly significant. Texas basically admitting, hey, we're going to spend an additional $19 million in NIL money. But guess what Ohio State spent last year? What did Oregon spend last year? What did Texas spend last year? So really, that's not any more money than Texas spent a year ago. It's just now we're adding in the revenue share that everybody's doing. And that's why that headline is all over the place. But I don't think people are taking it in the context of, yeah, half that money is coming from a brand new source that every single program out there is going to be doing. Now 21 million is replacing zero.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying, though, it's also fair to say Texas is going to spend more than Mississippi State and more than Alabama and more than most everybody.
On NIL, they can't spend more. The revenue sharing is a hard cap. That's a number that everyone has to spend, but you can't spend a dime over it. Now, NIL is going to be, like Luke said, NIL is still going to be the area that sort of there will be a dividing line between haves and have-nots. Now they're saying that this is going to be regulated. That's what the NCAA is saying. That's the goal of the House settlement, is that NIL will be regulated. As I've said from the beginning, I have my serious doubts as to the extent of that regulation. And I think that Texas story is further proof that I'm not sure how regulated NIL is going to be if Texas is going to continue to spend 19 million. Now Texas has to account for all of that money as this is being spent on legitimate NIL purposes. And let's see if they can do that.
Circuitous route to get back to Jett Washington. What I think, I know what I was trying to say, and I think you would probably agree with me, is that Texas and Oregon are going to spend more money. And so, my guess is Oregon will probably offer Jett Washington more money. I don't know that, probably. But I think it's very fair.
That's a fair guess.
Okay. So what Alabama needs to sell them on is some other stuff and development and, atmosphere and, playing in the SEC that just had 71 players drafted. Now the Big Ten had 71. So, but I think Alabama's got a good argument here. And also, Alabama's got a lot of West Coast guys on their staff and on the team. So, they can sell a lot of familiarity too. In the end, I feel like this will be a 50-50 battle. Even the money aside, I feel like this will be a 50-50 battle.
Too many will phrase it like, okay, if you're choosing between Alabama and Oregon, this is how I think the typical fan is going to phrase it this way. They'll go like, okay, do you want the short-term benefit that playing at Oregon provides you, or the long-term benefit that Alabama will provide for you due to development, NFL, and that sort of stuff? I just don't think things are that simple. Yeah. I think, for one thing, that undersells two things. Number one, signing with Alabama in the short term is a good idea because you do get significant money. Alabama is a payer in the NIL world. Jett Washington will be paid well at Alabama because Alabama's a top 15, top 20 payer, at least. Secondly, it's selling Oregon short on long-term development. That's a good staff. It's a good program. They put guys in the draft too, and they're going to be put even more guys in the draft as their recruiting profile expands. So I think when the people just phrase it as, oh, this is short-term money versus long-term development, I think that just sells both programs a little short. It sells Alabama short on the short term and Oregon short on the long term.
Okay, I don't want to be disrespectful towards Oregon here. I'm not trying to pick a fight with the Ducks. But it did just dawn on me when you say that. Who's the best former Oregon guy in the NFL right now?
Justin Herbert. That immediately.
Justin Herbert. Okay, good one. And he's been around a good bit. Now name another.
Kayvon Thibodeau.
Thibodeau been good.
He hasn't been around.
Would you say he's lived up to his expectations?
Maybe not, but in the ballpark. Maybe not. He's a good player. He's a good player in the NFL for sure. But is he a little super elite like you would expect? I think he was maybe the 6th pick or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember. He's good. You're right. Oregon doesn't have Alabama's NFL profile, but Lanning, hasn't really been there that long. And this Oregon staff, they haven't been there long enough, I think, to develop, dozens of NFL players. But
true,
but they are putting they put that corner that went to New England last year. Gonzalez, he's off to a good start.
Tackle that was at Detroit. I don't even know if he's there anymore.
Bo Nix was rookie of the year type guy.
Yeah, and I guess they definitely get more credit for Bo Nix than Auburn did. And fair enough. I'm just saying, if you really want to go player for player, Alabama certainly got a better track record of long-term development. Now, again, it was a former staff, really, and now Oregon's got sort of a new staff too. So it may not be fair, but I just wouldn't even. So it comes back to what you were saying. It's not fair to even use that argument for short or long term.
Exactly. I think both Alabama and Oregon are top 5 recruiters these days. I'm not going to be surprised with Jett Washington picking either one. I mean, I think he could easily pick Oregon. I think he'd easily pick Alabama. I think Alabama fans ought to be like, cool that we're in the top 2 here. This is, in my opinion, the best safety in this class nationally. This is Kobe Bryant's nephew. He plays at a premier program. He's got ridiculous length for a DB, very similar to Dijon Lee, who I'm sure they say, Jett, hey, get on the phone with Dijon. Y'all are kind of similar guys. I mean, even though Dijon primarily a corner.
With him. Just hand him a note from Alabama to Nevada that y'all have that kind of reach.
That's impressive length.
He does love length in the defensive backfield. I don't think there's any doubt. All right, got to tell you all about one of our newer sponsors. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? I didn't know that till they started sponsoring us. I got a Fire TV, and I didn't know that it was an Xbox. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to rock. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. What if you could jump into your favorite Xbox titles without even needing your console in every room? How great would that be? I got 4 kids, and if I want to shut them up, the best way to do that is put an Xbox right in front of their faces. So look, head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. That's Amazon.com Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd generation, and Fire TV Cube 3rd generation. I'll have to hope y'all understand what I'm talking about.
I understood it pretty well. Can I play Pac-Man on Xbox? What about Asteroid? What about Asteroids? Space Invaders. Can I do that on Xbox?
Missile Command, most underrated game of our generation. Okay.
Tecmo Bowl on Xbox.
Tecmo Bowl. God, bring that back. They did overpower Bo Jackson ridiculously. But okay. If they were going to overpower him, they should at least allow him to get hurt easily. Okay. So let's talk about this 8 versus 9 game conference thing. And I know you're thinking, why are we talking about this again? Because they talked about it on Dusty and Danny in the morning this morning, and I listened to it, and I'm just, again, it gets my goat a little bit. First of all, I'm fine. I hate saying this. Danny Cannell had a good idea.
Oh, well.
That makes me sick. But he had a good idea. He said,
broken watch is correct twice a day.
Said, I don't care so much if everybody does 8 or 9 games in conference, as long as everybody, if I could get everybody to do 10 Power 4 games. Okay, now that's an idea I can get behind. And then it dawned on me, we're doing that this year.
Yeah.
Bama is. Now, also Power 4 include Notre Dame, of course, and whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But we are playing FSU, Wisconsin, along with 8 SEC games. That is murderer's row. Now, you can say, well, Wisconsin hadn't been Wisconsin lately, and FSU was 2-10 last year. All those true, but those are still 2 preeminent programs in the country. And I would say Florida State was more of an anomaly last year. It's actually Florida State probably had 2 anomalies in a row, and they're probably more like a 9-win squad. Traditionally, right. Wisconsin definitely 8 to 10 win squad. So this is definitely stepping it up schedule wise for Alabama, and I can live with this. See, I'm an 8-game SEC guy. Because Danny's other argument is if they don't do that, I think everybody should go to 9 games, because that's how we can tell, more reasonably and more accurately how these conferences really are. And I call BS, because the Big 12 isn't as good as the SEC or the Big 10, and the ACC certainly isn't. So you could play 10 ACC games and not equal what 8 SEC games are, in my opinion. Now, other people may disagree. Danny obviously does. But I do really like his idea of 10 Power 5 games. You can play as many conference games as your conference says, and I won't complain if you play 10 Power 5, 10 Power 4 games. Another thing I want to throw out there very quickly, and you can tag on towards the end. Tim Brando was on, I can't believe he's still on any program, but he was on Crane and Company. And for some reason, I think they pay him to go on their show. And we need to get Tim Brando to show us on the doll where the SEC hurt him, because
he's kind of an LSU guy, isn't he?
He is, but he's very hurt by the SEC in general right now, it seems. He said the Big Ten is past the SEC, and there's no question about it. And I'm thinking, we did have more players drafted. Yes, Ohio State won the championship. Kudos. I can't take that. And Michigan won it the year before that. Again, kudos. I'm not saying that the SEC is miles ahead of the Big Ten. I'm saying they are roughly there together with the SEC, a slight nod, in my opinion. Now, but
you can't say the Big Ten is
better is nuts.
That's a nutty take to me. That's nut. I mean, that's okay. If as long as you are setting the criteria at whoever wins the national championship is clearly the best conference, which is pretty dumb considering, like, for instance, in this recent history, Clemson has 2 national championship wins. Did that mean that the ACC was the best conference that year? So that's just a dumb take. But I agree it's a factor, and I agree at the top, you have to look at, the top of the league, how strong is the top? That's a factor. Sure, Big Ten's there, but the reason that Brando is so wrong about that is I evaluate conferences top to bottom. Maybe I'm wrong to do that, but I say top to bottom, and in the middle and the bottom, the SEC matches up really well with the Big Ten. I think the SEC's middle is longer, kind of just like mine is growing these days, and the bottom.
Oh, okay.
I'm gaining weight somehow. I'm blaming Easter. And those Reese's peanut butter eggs is what I'm blaming.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
Oh, goodness gracious. Right. But anyway, back to 8 versus 9 games. My only real quick take on that is, in this current format, in the format that we're using right now with the committee and the 12 teams and how the committee went about its work, and how they put Indiana in last year, and how they put SMU in last year, if you're Alabama, you're nuts to want to move to 9 games. 100%. You're nuts to make the conference. You're nuts to make the schedule any tougher than it needs to be. The smart thing to do is, in addition to the 8 SEC games, is to schedule, I think you have to schedule 1 Power 4 non-conference game by rule, and the SEC has. Okay, do that and play, Iowa State, and then play 3 FCS teams or 3 Sun Belt teams, because I don't think this committee takes strength of schedule. I don't think the country right now, the normal college football fan, I don't think they factor. I think everyone, or most everyone, seems to be solely focused on that number in your loss column. That tends to decide virtually everything with scant exception. And while they do take strength of schedule into account, I'm not saying they put 0 on it. They don't put enough emphasis on it to justify playing a tougher schedule. So under this format that we have right now, I think the SEC should stay at 8. And if they change the format, then we need to discuss changing to 9 if the new format justifies that.
But I'm not on board. I'm on board with what Danny Cannell says for sure.
Yeah, about the 10.
But I also look at
more uniformity of schedule would be great.
I'm on board with the 10. I'm on board with the 10 Power 4 games.
Yeah.
But I look at this particular year and I say, okay, Alabama's got at Georgia. They've got LSU, who some people think, is going to be a national championship contender. They've got at Auburn. They've got Tennessee at home. And I know Tennessee just lost Nico, but they were in the playoffs last year. They've got FSU. They got Wisconsin. They've got at South Carolina, who some people think is a dark horse. They've got all that. And then I look across the state at Auburn, and Auburn's playing Baylor, and they're playing they have Bama and Georgia. They're both at home. And other than that, it's kind of a cakewalk.
Manageable.
So I mean, I'm like, look, even when you try and set up the schedules as best you can, it's difficult. So, and sometimes Auburn's schedule is harder, and sometimes it's less hard. I'm just saying, next year it is clearly easier than Bama's schedule. There's not much debate on that. So, sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's not. And even with 10 Power 4 games, it brings it all towards the middle a little more, but it's still going to be difficult. Jimmy, when we come back, we're going to continue our walk-on profile because you're doing bang-up work there, bro. But I do want to talk about Monarch Money right now. You know, sometimes you check your bank account and you wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, yo. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. And it was all of it, like just all my money. I just took my wallet and threw it at the delivery driver and said, just bring me money till the month's over. Bring me food. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year at monarchmoney. Jimmy?
Come.
Got to keep you on your toes there.
Well, just thinking, I'm spending too much. Monarch needs to help me with my food thing too. I don't think you should buy the Easter candy and walk up to the register at Walmart and discuss how much is in your 401k. That's
you
how
take so much Easter. You took so many Cadbury eggs. You wanted to negotiate the pricing. Like, is there bulk pricing?
Yeah. Are there tariffs on what I'm buying here at the?
By the way, I'll die on this hill. I don't know that there's a better seasonal candy, period, than Cadbury eggs.
Really?
Oh,
that's your number one.
That seasonal candy, like you don't want a Cadbury egg in July.
Well, you can buy Reese's. You can buy Reese's Buttercups all year long, and really, that's all those Reese's eggs are. It's just really the Buttercup in a different form. But I eat
more sugar.
I can only describe the amount of those I ate in terms of tonnage. But
Jimmy doesn't have kids, but he still hides eggs just so he can just for the candy. Okay, I do want to throw this out there, and I'm very sorry. I know a lot of you guys know this, but Wimp Sanderson lost his wife last night. Annette Sanderson passed away, unfortunately, and so very sad for the Sanderson family and the Alabama family. Also, want to certainly mention Keaton Bristow, committed to Alabama, a basketball player, the WAC Freshman of the Year from Tarleton State. He will be at Alabama. I'll say this. Tim Watts didn't seem super, super high on him. He was like, yeah, he's a puzzle piece, not necessarily a starter. And okay, but we need puzzle pieces. And Tim wasn't saying, hey, he sucks, we shouldn't have taken him. I think Tim was saying, I don't want y'all to have these unreasonable expectations for this kid.
Right. I think he used even the term developmental piece, and that turned people off. But I mean, it never turns me off because the way even when you sign 5-star, they're all developmental. Every one of them. No one shows up and going, perfect. We don't have to change a thing. You don't even have to practice. But anyway, walk-on spotlight today. Let's talk about two guys. Jaden Hobson's one guy. Really interesting walk-on. From Tuscaloosa, a lot of people might not know his story. This is a walk-on. Jaden Hobson, tight end. He is from Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa, comes out of Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa as an offensive line prospect, recruited by Power 4 schools. As a matter of fact, signed with Mississippi State out of high school as a scholarship player to play the offensive line, spent his freshman year there. didn't work out. I think he had trouble with the weight gain part, gaining weight, gaining strength, and thought to himself after just 1 year, I don't think it's going to work out here. So he smartly transferred down, went to South Alabama last season as a scholarship offensive lineman. Once again, wasn't too happy with the situation, and I think had kind of a weight gain thing and said, you know what, I just want to go home. So he's home now. Home for him is Tuscaloosa and at Alabama, and has ditched the weight gain part and is now a perfectly well-sized 6'4", 255-pound tight end. And
of course he is.
of course he's a tight end. Exactly. And exactly what Alabama's looking for in terms of, we need more block first tight ends, and here's an offensive lineman that did. So anyway, I'm not predicting that Jaden Hobson gets in the situation or gets in the picture. I'm just saying he might. He's probably finally the right fit for him, and got to applaud a kid who's decided, hey, I'm coming home. Yeah, I'm paying my own way now, but this might be a better situation for me than Mississippi State and South Alabama. And at Alabama, you have to like the fact that you get a walk-on that was deemed scholarship worthy, at first a Power 4 school and then an FBS school like the Jags. Second is J.D. Martin, another really interesting story. He's a young guy. He just redshirted last year, so he's a redshirt freshman. So this is a young guy. He's a center on the offensive line that actually came down. He's from Pisgah, which is kind of a power program for amongst us. So a small school guy who's a little undersized, right? And an in-state guy. That's your classic walk-on. Classic walk-on. Good high school program, little undersized, wasn't going to be recruited by all the big boys, small college type guy, but him and the family, they love Alabama. So he walks on with the idea that he was going to be the long snapper. But this kid's so talented that he's coming to Alabama as a long snapper, and they're like, you know what? You can block. How about putting that long snapping stuff aside, because we think you can play on the offensive line. So he's at center. He's about 6'3", 255 right now, which is 6'3", 260, gaining weight, gaining size, one of the smaller guys now. He's a name to watch in the future. Center is kind of a strange position. It's not like tackle. It's not like wide receiver. It's not like corner. Center, you have developmental stories all the time. The NFL is full of centers who were not five-star type prospects coming out of high school. Center and tight end is a lot like that. But anyway, J.D. Martin came to Alabama as a long snapper. Now he's a full-time blocker at center. Still has some long snap ability in case you need somebody there. He's just another quality walk-on in this program. And hey, you can't practice without these guys. And we all appreciate the sacrifice them and their families make to help the program, because you can't just run. You're not just going to run scholarship guys out there for James Smith to beat up on every day. These guys are kind of critical. So we'll continue the walk-on spotlight, by the way, all the way into next week before we start our roster ranking countdown.
I do love the idea of that's the interview process. Like, okay, thanks for coming in, JD. It says here that you were at Pisgah. By the way, I know how to pronounce that, being with the HSA radio network and having gotten several complaints the way I pronounced it the first time. Thank you. JD, so you were at Pisgah and you were a center. How do you feel about having your face crushed in every day at practice?
Hey, so roll Tide. When the answers roll Tide, you give them the jersey.
You say, "Welcome to the team, son," and be sure to go buy a mask, because your face will be a mess after James gets done with it.
Yeah. Hey, that's a tough thing. Walk on center. Look who you're going up against every day. Yeah,
that is so difficult. I can't imagine. That probably is that may be the worst. Like, overall, of all the things you could be, walk on and scout team, like, what's the worst thing to go up against? Now, some people, if you ever had to block Derek Thomas at any position, you're like, that was the worst. But overall, like, on average, walk on centers probably get beat on the worst, right?
It's a 5. I would think that would be up there. That would definitely be up there. And we talked about one earlier this week, Michael Loreno, walk on running back. They get kind of smashed a little bit.
Walk on running backs occasionally, like,
next week I'll tell a 5-minute football story. My favorite one's about my best buddy in high school who walked on our high school football team. and he played center, and it's a funny story, but it's a good 5-minute thing. So we won't do that today, but it's funny.
Okay.
There'll be chuckles.
All right, that'll do it for today's podcast. I think we'll be back tomorrow. We'll see. But until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.